Hello and welcome to today's live session on taking sustainable luxury to the next level. I'm Ayako Ezaki at Training Aid, and we're proud to partner today with Wild Asia to offer today's session as part of our special Wild Asia Responsible Tourism Leaders series. In just a few moments, you'll hear more from Amy from Wild Asia, why we're doing this series and what this is all about, as well as learn from our expert presenters, Arnfinn from Soneva Resorts and Marie Gros from El Nido Resorts, as you see on the screen. But just before we get started, a couple of reminders for those of you who are watching this live. As you see on the right-hand side of the webinar window, you can share comments in the chat window or questions. We will have some time at the end of this session to have a Q&A, but feel free to use the chat window to share your comments and questions at any point during the presentation, during the webinar. And as always, the recording of this session will be available for anyone to access on our website after the session, and you will receive a reminder of this. And with that, so Amy, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you could share a little bit more about Wild Asia and what you do and with the Responsible Tourism Award, that would be great.
Sure. So yes, I am the Wild Asia Responsible Tourism Awards Manager. This is now my 5th year running the awards, but the program has been running now for 10 years, so we're celebrating our 10th birthday this year. Just a quick history of the awards program. Wild Asia is a social enterprise based in Malaysia, and they're operating all over mostly South and Southeast Asia. And their mission is to support various industries. Oh, sorry. Just a bit of interference there, sorry. Yes, Wild Asia offers services to different industries, namely tourism and palm oil, to help businesses become more environmentally and socially responsible. And for the tourism industry, 10 years ago, we identified in the Southeast Asia region a need to communicate successes in responsible travel with a mission to inspire other businesses to follow their best practice. So we started the awards program. The system has always been based on the Global Sustainable Tourism Council's criteria, and our application process helps tourism businesses and initiatives of all sizes assess their business against the global standards, so they can identify areas that they're doing really well in and areas that they might need to improve. And then our awards will recognize leaders in the field and give them a platform to share their story and their lessons learned. Every year we celebrate at ITB Asia, and last year we actually celebrated in partnership with PATA. We went to India last year for the award ceremony. And yep, so here's some photographs of our award ceremony here. We use this platform to communicate businesses of all sizes and levels of luxury and all different kinds of locations and challenges they might find in those locations, to show what models can be replicated in different parts of the region. And so to celebrate 10 years this year, we're not having a traditional awards competition. We're actually have re-engaged our award recipients from all over the region and ask those who would like to take part in an activity to better consolidate all those stories and to communicate them and continue to educate the travel industry and make it be a better place to work and live within. So I'm pleased that we have a couple of our top 10 awardees here today to join us, both incredibly inspirational businesses, and different and similar in different ways. And yeah, so I hope everyone will enjoy today's session and hear what they can take away from these businesses. That's the entire mission of our awards. So. Ayako?
Sorry, myself muted. Thanks, Amy, so much for the introduction and giving us the overview of the Wild Asia Responsible Tourism Awards. And we're really happy to be part of this initiative to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of this important program. And I've been personally really lucky, and it's been a great pleasure to be part of the Responsible Tourism Award team in the last few years, and have had the chance to get to know some of the really responsible tourism and sustainability leaders in Asia, but I think worldwide. And to get started on our sharing and sharing of the lessons and stories, as Amy mentioned earlier, we are joined today with two sustainable tourism experts, and particularly, I think, internationally recognized leaders in the area of sustainable luxury resorts and hospitality brands. And our first expert presenter is Anfin, as I mentioned earlier, from Soneva Resorts in Thailand and in the Maldives. And we're really lucky to be able to learn from him in many of the exciting initiatives that's happening at Soneva. So let's just get started with this beautiful picture from one of the resorts that Soneva does. So Anfin, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
And so here's a question that we wanted to start with. That's really close, I think, to our award program. You have been awarded with in the most inspiring category, which I think is really exciting. And tell us a little bit more about what has this category specifically meant to you, and what being inspiring in the industry and for your business, what it means to you.
Well, thank you. Winning an award, the most inspiring, is a great honor for us. We really appreciate being recognized for the work we do, and especially in terms of our sustainability. But we pride ourselves to win various sustainability awards, and being by that inspiring for others. But we also pride ourselves that we not only win sustainability awards, but we also win awards for our service. And for us, that's important, that we are able to show that we can both be sustainable, but at the same time provide world-leading services and hospitality practices. As you can see, we are located in areas with natural beauty, and our vision is inspired by nature's magnitude and mystery of enchanting beauty. And we work hand in hand with environment to craft beautiful and beyond spoke experiences where discovery of life is a way of life. So we do strive to provide a blueprint for the hospitality industry. We innovate to reduce our own emission and costs, and also to prove to our peers that this is possible. So to win an inspiring award is a great accolade and acknowledgement for the work we do.
Great, and I think that the message that you mentioned, that the being inspiring in terms of the sustainability efforts that you implement and the leadership that you show through those sustainability initiatives, of course, important and a key part of your brand. But I think that one of the messages that we want to highlight through your examples and stories today as well is that it's also about business, and I think that it's a key message that we want to share with anyone who's interested in sustainability and sustainable tourism. And also, I think specifically our key topic today is sustainable luxury, that sustainability can and should be about a key part of the well-being of business, the health and the strength of the business. And I think that we have excellent two examples here today to share, which we're really happy about. And here's sort of a little bit more technical and specific question for you, Anfin. Tell us a little bit more about how Soneva measures and monitors its impact in terms of environmental and social sustainability.
We have measured our impact and our carbon footprint since 2008, where we have really gone beyond just looking at their energy consumption, scope 1 and 2, if you want to be technical, but also looked beyond and looked at scope 3, which for us, the majority of the emissions come from our guest air travel. And we've done that since 2008. Last year, we wanted to broaden that and see a little bit beyond just the carbon impact. So, in an effort to measure our total impact of the company and the impact we have on the natural world and on the community in which we operate, we developed a total impact assessment for the company as a whole. And this is the first time this evaluation of this magnitude had been commissioned in the hospitality industry. And so what we have done, we've recognized that a company's performance should be assessed by a total contribution to society. And we looked then on a holistic view and looked at impacts in 5 categories. So natural capital, human capital, social capital, economic capital, and tax. And that allows the company to quantify and monetize it in a language that translates to standard business performance. So we have transformed everything and translated everything into dollar terms. So by that, making comparisons. And if you look at this, we've tried to illustrate it through this graph, where on the top, where you see the red bars, that's looking at our natural capital, which we have marked red as that is a negative impact. That is where we make use of natural resources to get, and we have there gone beyond just looking at carbon, but we also looked into a whole environmental profit and loss analysis of our supply chain. So basically to look at, for instance, how much land would it take to grow the foods that we are consuming, and I guess consuming, how much energy, how much carbon emission, how much water consumption is that, and put dollar figures on that. So, and then we've looked also then, what about our human capital? So what is the value we're generating through training, to employing hosts, to training them, and also seeing that some of them actually will leave our company, but then go on to take another good job. We've seen also, and those are the bars to the right. Then we also looked at obviously the environmental impact, the economic impact we have through the generating revenues, buying local products, and also through our community projects, the social capital generated through the various projects. And what we have found is, and what we're proud to say, is that when balancing the positive with the negative impact, is that we in total have had a net positive impact. The cost from our environmental performance or environmental natural capital was around $9 million. But then when we look at all the positive aspects, so for instance, our human capital creation was about $8 million, and also social capital was $3.5 million. So when you add that plus the tax contributions and the economic activities from buying and products, our total positive impact is $33 million for when looking at one calendar year or our fiscal year in together. So that's we're very proud of seeing that our impact has more positive than negative contributions to the society and environment.
And Anfinn, if we could share one of the questions that we received earlier, and if this is a good, I thought it might be a good connection, because you mentioned as part of the total impact assessment, the environmental side of, I guess, the footprint of your operation. And a couple of people asked through the registration form submitted questions related to air travel. And I think, this is a question that for any tourism business that is really key when it comes to sustainable tourism and sustainability practices, but also a difficult one it can be. And I was wondering if you could maybe comment a little bit on that in terms of, air travel and I guess the environmental impact that's associated with the air travel from your guests.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's a very important aspect and one that impacts particularly our business very much. We are located in remote areas and rely on a lot of long haul distance travel. So when you look at our entire carbon footprint, our guest air travel counts around 70% of total emissions. So if you were only to look at the scope 1 and 2, which is, you can argue, is the mandatory emissions, that we would only then be looking at less than 20% of the total aspect. But we view it from the whole area, and 70% is from air travel. And unfortunately, this is not something we can do. We cannot ask our guests to swim or paddle or come without mud flying. So it's a thing that has been done, and we have addressed this since 2008, where we introduced environmental levy of 2% of room revenue that each guest pay. And we use those funds. They go through the Soneva Foundation and is invested into carbon mitigating projects. For instance, we have built a 1.5 million megawatt wind turbine in India. We have planted 500,000 trees in Thailand. And then also we have gotten involved in some energy efficient cook stove projects both in Darfur and Myanmar. And all these projects have so far mitigated 200,000 tons of CO2 and will, over the lifetime of the projects, mitigate more than 1 million tons. And if you then look at just our operations, we on annual basis have around 35,000 tons. So with that, and since 2014, we have mitigated all our emissions, including guest flights, and by that can consider us carbon neutral, including guest travel, air travel, and that would also imports and of products that we bring in, and then have all been accounted for.
Yeah, great. Thanks for addressing this. Yeah, go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to add into there, and not only does these projects mitigate carbon emissions, but also they have an important socio-economic impact. Our projects have so far improved the lives of about 170,000 people, and we have calculated the social benefit it has, the social capital, to be valued around $8 million. So with that, really shows that we both have addressed an issue, a problem with guest flying and emissions related to that, but at the same time had a positive impact that more than compensated for that impact.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing in such detail. And like I said, I think that it is a question that often comes up and is relevant to any business, especially those that are welcoming international guests, and continues to be, I think, a key challenge in the tourism industry, whether it's in the luxury field or otherwise. But I think that the key lesson and takeaway, I think, from your example is, again, going back to the total impact assessment approach of really taking into consideration all these aspects of the impacts that you're generating through your operation, which is not just environmental, as you said, but also human capital and social impact. So here's another fun question for you, Anfi. Tell us a bit more about some of the most innovative approaches to sustainability projects that you have and you have been involved in.
Well, one of the things we are very proud of is our Ecocenter Waste to Wealth program. This is, if you look at sustainability, often the first things that come into mind of people is waste, because that's very visible, people see, and waste handling. And we have developed then a concept where we view waste not as something that we throw away, but we view it as an asset, as something that we can generate waste, wealth from, hence the term waste to wealth. An important aspect of that is composting to deal with organic matter and garden and food waste. We compost that and create composting soil that we then can use in our vegetable garden to grow vegetables that we use in our kitchens. Now, that may not be the most exciting thing that you would think of, and there are others that do that. One thing I want to highlight in terms of really being innovative in terms of the aspect of waste to wealth is the way we have are dealing with glass waste. We have, in essence, had, being located in remote areas, had a challenge with glass waste. It's not the easiest things to recycle, and the low value of it makes it not so interesting for people to collect, to recycle. So we started in the Maldives at Soneva Fuji a program and built our Soneva Glass Studio, So Glassical we call it, where we have hired some glass blowers, and where we also invite artists, world-renowned glass artists, to then create beautiful art pieces from our glass waste, plus glass waste from the neighboring resorts. So you can see here on the picture, these are some of the nice pieces that are created. Some of these glasses and stuff we will use at a resort, and some are actually being auctioned off, especially from our visiting artists, are auctioned off to guests and then bring back revenue into the resort. So then you are not only creating a beauty out of the glass, but you're also creating a value, and that's where our waste to wealth concept comes. And if you look at the past 6 months, past year, our whole waste to wealth concept, vegetable garden, growing vegetables plus creating these glass pieces, have generated about $200,000 worth of revenue for us.
And I have another beautiful picture from you. Tell us what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that what we have done, where one of our guest experience is the Cinema Paradiso, where we allow our guests to watch the stars in the films among the stars above in an open air cinema. So this is a fantastic guest experience that guests love, having an open air cinema. This particular here is at Soneva Kiri in Thailand, and you can see this. The screen is floating on a water pond, and actually this water pond is a rainwater catchment area that we have constructed, and then collect rainwater to use throughout the resort and keep the resort self-sufficient of water. So it's combining a beautiful guest experience with a great sustainable practice by collecting rainwater and using it throughout the resort.
Great. And I think that the whole sort of the sustainability approach and how you inspire others in the tourism industry, I think in the region but also internationally, I think has a lot to do with water, which is I think a key part of the natural resources, especially in locations like where you are located. And I wanted to also ask you to share. I think some more examples and stories from what you've done in terms of how you're sort of continuing to inspire others in the industry. And I think this was a great example from you that's also related to water.
Yeah, I mean, this is a practice that we changed actually. We looked into our how we operated and run there. So we tweaked a little bit how we do our business in terms of water. We looked at I mean this back in 2008. It was quite common in the luxury segment of having all sorts of water, having a water menu with water coming from all over the world. And we felt that this really contradicted what sustainability was about. So we decided to abandon that and started to producing our own water, Soneva drinking water, both still and sparkling. And then bottling them in glass bottles and then selling them to our guests. This obviously enabled us to eliminate plastic bottles, so a great from a waste management perspective. Roughly, we have eliminated about roughly 150,000 bottles per year with this practice. So we have, I think there's more than 1 million plastic bottles we have averted from landfill. So that's a great environmental practice. But also this is, from a business perspective, more beneficial because we have made an investment into the water bottling plant, been able to reduce the cost of the sales for our water. So not only is it good for the environment, but also it's good for the business. And what we did was not to pocket all those additional savings, but we set aside a big proportion of that into helping others that don't have access to safe water or basic sanitation. I mean, if you look at globally, there is about 700 million people without access to safe drinking water and 2.5 billion people without access to basic sanitation. So that is quite a paradox when the hospitality industry ship and drinking water around the world. So with that saving and then contribution we have done for those, we have been able to help about 600,000 people get access to either safe drinking water or basic sanitation. We also then inspired the formation of the Whole World Water Campaign, which essentially takes the idea from us to bottle your own water, encourage the hospitality industry to bottle their own water, sell it to guests, and then donate 10% of the water revenue to help people without access to safe drinking water. So that's an example of how we have taken a little change to our way we do business, and then been able to make good contributions to both the environment and to our pressing social need. And at the same time also it's not been hurting our business way of doing business. And actually this idea of the Whole World Water came up at one of our events called that we arranged once a year called the Slow Life Symposium. It's an event where we invite about 20 to 30 influential people, either in the environmental community, business people, some governmental officials, philanthropists, to brainstorm for 3 days about environmental solutions. That was one of the the outcomes that came out of that. And we have a few other initiatives that are in the making that have global scale, and that's also a way that we want to try and inspire and influence, not only locally, but also to see what we can do on the global scale.
Great. I remember when I first read about the Soneva drinking water initiative, one of my reactions was, can all the other resorts and other applicants in the Wild Asia Responsible Tourism Award also learn from this and do it if they're not already? Because I think it's such a fundamental issue, I think, in any resorts or hotels around the world to how you provide water.
We have seen about 100 resorts that have joined the Whole World Water campaign. So there is some momentum there of doing, but we also know that there's a lot of others that have changed, not necessarily joined the campaign, but have actually changed there. So there is certainly a movement in that there are lots of people are adopting that practice, and that's, for us, is a great to see.
Of course, and I think hopefully, as one of the outcomes of you continuing to inspire people with your example, will be that, and this webinar hopefully will be part of that as well, to inspire even more people to adopt such sustainable practices when it comes to water and as well as other areas of what you do. So thank you so much, Arnfinn, again, for all these examples and stories that you've shared with us, and for your inspiring messages. We will.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We will have, I think, more time at the end if anyone has additional questions specifically from Arnfinn. And now we will. Let's see. So Amy and Marigo, if you can come on and see if the audio works. Marigo, are you there as well? Just for those of you, sorry, if you're watching this live, and just so you know, we had some challenges with the connection earlier with Marigo, who's joining us from the Philippines, and I see the video feed again. So she's there with us, and thank you for joining, both Amy and Marigo again. So I would just start with this small video that we have, which was created as part of the Wild Asia Award in 2015, I think last year, as El Nido was a finalist in the Most Inspiring category last year. So let's start with this and get to know a little bit about what El Nido is doing. Huh? The video that's not. No, I hear it. No? No, I'm not ready.
and ensures we serve only freshest fruits and vegetables to our guests. Over 80% of our staff is locally hired from El Nido and or nearby towns in Palawan. These staff members are trained in ocean protection and conservation through the Be Green training. The Be Green is also brought to local schools to spread environmental education and foster sustainable habits at a young age. We strive to create strong community partnerships by sourcing as much as 60% of our materials locally, like our buri bags, which come from the local women weavers in the community. To augment the earnings of local fishermen, we also partnered with a local fishing village to demonstrate traditional and sustainable fishing methods to guests. We always strive to find ways to become one with the community. All these we do to preserve and sustain the rich biodiversity and beautiful surroundings of El Nido. From the terrestrials to the marine, we work hand in hand to keep things going for many more years to come.
Thank you, Ayako, for sharing that.
Thanks, Amy. Well, one of the things that I wanted to maybe instead of the question that we have, let me go back to. Amy, you just had the chance to go visit El Nido yourself as part of the 10-year anniversary initiative. Maybe you could share a little bit more about what you've seen and what you've learned from your visit.
Yeah, sure. It was absolutely fantastic. I just recently got back the other week from visiting El Nido Resorts, and I've been reading really thorough application forms from this business for the past 4 years or so. And so even though I have read in a great amount of detail the incredible best practices that El Nido Resorts have implemented, and I'm fully aware of the positive engagement they have with the local community and their never-ending commitment to the natural environment, being there in person was really inspiring beyond belief. Everything was so sincere. The sustainability measures were so interconnected, and the entire supply chain of how things work at the resorts have been clearly very, very carefully and thoughtfully considered. And not only is it just such a beautiful place to be, but the subtle education guests receive as part of that experience and how they're encouraged to connect with the natural environment is really, really beautiful. And yeah, I came home feeling incredibly motivated to and inspired to continue working in the field of responsible tourism. I think those of us who work in sustainable travel, sometimes we can become almost oblivious that other kinds of tourism exists. And it was really nice to have a moment of realization that, wow, this is really the most exciting sector to be in, and El Nido really, really inspired me. So I'm glad we have Miss Mariggs here today to talk to us a little bit about her practices. And I hope you guys have some questions for her as well.
I just mentioned on our chat window for those of us who are watching this live that Marigo can, unfortunately, I think continues to have some issues with the audio, but I think she can hear us, and she's on the chat, at least joining us live, and maybe she can share some comments. And if anybody has specific questions, we could try and do that and facilitate. I think maybe because we have just a little bit more time, maybe let's have Amy share a little bit more specifics of the background of El Nido and the Wild Asia Responsible Tourism Award that El Nido has received. And just so, if in case anybody was not aware, El Nido was the winner in the accommodation section, I think, in 2009, and again a finalist for the most inspiring operators category in 2015. So El Nido has been sort of a part of the Wild Asia responsible tourism family for a long time. So it's really exciting to welcome her back in a way to be part of the program and share her story after so many years. And I think that one of the things that we've seen over the years since 2009 and now is that El Nido has sort of received a lot of recognitions in Asia and beyond for its sustainability efforts, which is great to see and shows sort of the scope and the leadership of the Wild Asia Responsible Tourism Award Program. And with that, I just wanted to share a little bit of what Marie-Gros has shared with us in terms of El Nido's sustainability practices, and I can have Amy maybe go through a little bit more in detail to share more examples. So for the there you go. So here are some of the, in terms of the leadership in sustainability that El Nido has been showing, this is a presentation that Marie-Gros has provided us about some of the sustainability initiatives. And Amy, can you maybe talk about some of these points from your experience with El Nido's application and your review and site visit? Would that work?
Yeah, of course, yes. Are we starting here at this slide? Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with where El Nido is located, it's located at the northern part of the island of Palawan in the Philippines. Increasingly, Palawan is now receiving recognition as one of the most beautiful islands, most beautiful beaches, most beautiful locations in the world to visit. And this small piece of paradise is slowly becoming increasingly popular, which remains to be one of the challenges actually for the resorts, is to ensure that the tourism industry around them is taking their commitment to sustainability as seriously as well. As you can see from the current slide, it's also an incredibly rich environment for natural beauty and wildlife. The marine environment is one of the most pristine that I have ever witnessed. There's also lots of beautiful birds. I believe the top left one here is the Palawan hornbill bird, which can only be found there. And it is a luxurious resort, and that's why we're here today to talk about luxurious resorts. And something that they do incredibly well is for those guests who do find themselves staying at El Nido because it has the most beautiful rooms and the most incredible level of service and is through and through a luxurious experience, but they want to engage those guests with the natural environment, because when they leave, that's something that's a lot more long lasting, is the birds that they saw, is the corals that they experienced, is the sustainability measures that they saw in place. That's something that they'll take away with them, and they do a really fantastic job through things like their nature walks, and they have these beautiful discovery packs available for people to show them what things they can find in that environment, and people can look out for those to feel very connected to the very unique place that they're in. Yeah, here's a beautiful picture of the marine life. So they have 4 resorts as part of the El Nido Resorts group. They are growing slowly. So on this map here, you can see they have one resort at Miniloc Island, one at Lagan Island, and it's not on here, but the other island resort they have in this region of Palawan is also Pangulashan. They all have a very different vibe, trying to connect with different markets, but they all have a very clear and purposeful learning experience for all guests of different backgrounds. So when you go, the first thing that happens to you is you have an environmental awareness and welcome meeting, so that you're understanding about things like don't use plastic. You get given these beautiful woven bags in your rooms that have been produced by local artisans. You learn about how the menu in the restaurant is from their own organic farm, which is fertilized from their homemade compost that they have at the most spectacular waste management site system I have ever seen. Apparently, sometimes people mistakenly take it for a resort. It's so beautifully managed. And yeah, you learn the entire story. Can you flick through for me, please, Ayako? One more, sorry. So El Nido resorts have been going for quite some time now, and they have really been pioneers within their own community, if not globally, with the measures in which they take to support the local community through fantastic training and employment. They've got a really great retention rate for their staff. In fact, just recently, they now have their first round of second-generation staff. I met a wonderful man who is currently the manager of housekeeping at one of their resorts, and all three of his children are now working at the resorts. He's incredibly proud that this business has been able to support him, his career, and also provided funding for his daughter to graduate with a bachelor's of tourism, and the whole experience feels very much like a family. They also do really great multi-stakeholder engagement to support the wider tourism industry in the area. They know that it's important to support community members by doing research on their behalf about environmental pressures in the area and working with government. The area in which they work, I believe, is a marine protected area, but they have limited resources to have any kind of patrol system for things like commercial fishing. But the resort takes some of that responsibility themselves, and they're continuously reporting things that they see and working with local fishermen to change their practices, who offer these really fantastic and culturally immersive experiences for guests to learn very traditional drop line fishing techniques. They can hear from local fishermen about the challenges of fishing in the environment and what they've seen in other parts of Palawan and the impacts that that has. And then in turn, as well as educating guests about this, can educate their own community and more people in the area about those practices. One of the pressures at, I know for sure, at least one of their island resorts is that there is a lack of fresh water. They could have had water delivered from the main island to them. This would have been very expensive, and over time they would not necessarily have seen the same return on investment as they have from their own desalination plant. They also have really fantastic wastewater and sewage treatment plants on site as well. So the water recycled from sewage then is used as water for toilets, and the desalination plant is also used for showers and tap water. And that is, I believe, a cost saving of 5 times than shipping in, and also, of course, the other environmental implications of bringing in large quantities of water. So they have really thought considerately about the environment in which they're in and how to sustain that for their resorts. Yeah, so this one I cannot see too clearly, but this is, I assume, something about the boat activity that they encounter within the local area of their resorts. And as I mentioned, they're supporting the local Coast Guard with reporting illegal fishing activities. They're doing reef checks. They're monitoring and observing how many boats that go into a local tourist attraction, which is the large lagoon, and they're offering alternative experiences for their guests to experience that without the crowds by going in by kayak. And it was one of actually my most memorable travel experiences, I think, to date, going into this beautifully calm and serene environment without the crowds of tourism, which this area now is increasingly receiving some pressure from. Yeah, to the right here, this is the wastewater treatment plant that they have here. And in guest rooms, messages are left in the bathrooms to explain about how water is processed and how people can save water as part of their holiday experience. On the left here, they are working with young people as part of their Be Green outreach for Filipino children to come and learn about green practices and how to protect marine environments and terrestrial environments as well. And the Be Green training for young people, they've also just started to trial this with overseas students to come for summer camps to learn about sustainability at their resorts as well. Yeah, so the bottom right here, this is one of the discovery sheets that I was mentioning. So these are left for all guests in their room when they arrive to see examples of beautiful fish and corals and birds and other sorts of wildlife that you can encounter during your stay. So rather than just enjoying the fantastic surroundings for a delicious gin and tonic, people can walk away and know that they've seen birds that are very precious and very special to that part of the world, and have a much more long-lasting connection with that, both the natural environment but also the location as a resort. And I'm sure it encourages a lot more people to return, or at least to recommend it to their friends and family. And as you can see from the top left here, just look how beautiful and pristine the water is. They engage guests in outdoor activities rather than just lounging just by the pool, so it gets people very much connected to how beautiful the local environment is. And on the right here, this is a photograph taken for one of their fishing tours that they do. So the area, like many parts of particularly Southeast Asia, have witnessed irresponsible fishing practices, overfishing and the use of fish bombing. And so as one way to educate local community members, they have been offering them an opportunity to deliver fishing tours for their guests. The money that they can make from this activity is a lot more successful than from illegal fishing practices. But it's also an incredible opportunity to curate the interaction between guests and the local community. This is something that just you wouldn't be able to seek out as a guest yourself, and it's an incredibly memorable experience to not only spend some time with some local people from the area and ask them questions about their life, and but it's an opportunity for the fishermen to really gain a sense of pride for the natural environment that they find on their doorstep, and encourage them to see great value in protecting that. And so, as you can see, the little boy here has caught a fish, which then will be taken after the fishing tour to the beautiful restaurants, where they will then prepare in traditional style of that area and serve to you at dinner time. So it's a really great travel experience, as well as benefiting host communities. So this is Minilok Island, I believe. So this is one of the locations I was mentioning that doesn't have access to fresh water. So incredibly well hidden if you look to the right of the coastline, behind the front row of those houses that they have along the seafront, is actually the septic management system, the wastewater management system that they have there. It's got a great view, surprisingly, and it's carefully monitored and managed. And as I said, they're reusing that water for some of the basic water needs of flushing toilets and things like that, which is it was a significant investment, but it certainly will last a long time and is ensuring a long-term economic and environmental benefit of the area. And yes, top right here is these beautiful woven bags that are left in guest rooms. So these are produced by local ladies who obviously benefit directly through the sales of those that the hotel buy for the guests. And on the left here, I think this is a training program for staff and cookery demonstration, which they also offer as a wet weather activity for guests to showcase and educate guests about their local organic farm that they have on the main island of Palawan, where they grow their own fruit and vegetables, and they also have their own organic pigs. And they can also learn about why certain fish cannot be found on the menu, and their commitment to sustainable menus.
Great, thank you so much, Amy, for jumping in and sharing so many great sort of insider insights since you've been there yourself. I'm just going to...
I hope I did it justice. I wasn't as I didn't speak as fluently as Miss Mariggs. I'm sorry she couldn't access the webinar with us.
Yeah, but well, I think that one of the things that I was thinking was that I think that it's also, of course, we would have loved to hear from Marie-Gro and learn directly from what she's doing. But I think it's also excellent to hear from you, Amy, because you have sort of the, of course, the expert perspective, but also the guest perspective, which I think is important. And that was one of the things, as we have just a couple of minutes on this session. Anfinn, are you? Can you hear us? Can you come back on audio?
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you in sort of closing was that, like, how has the response from your guests been in terms of all these sustainability efforts that you've been implementing?
The majority of our guests are very appreciative of our practices. We tend to not want to really enforce it on the guests. So if guests don't really care or don't really think about it, they are allowed to enjoy their holiday, but at the same time doing it in a sustainable way because we provide it in that respect. But then also others that are more interested, we take them around on what we call our Ecocenter tour, where we show them our waste management facility, show them how we produce vegetables, how we produce our water, and so on. And that's something that they very much appreciate of it. So in general, guests are very positive towards it, and there are some that actively ask about it. Guests are getting more and more informed and do expect that one take care of environmental principles. But I think also it's important that one don't try and force and tell too much from a pointing finger, because guests also are coming to enjoy their holiday and they need to be allowed to do that.
To relax. Yeah, and I'm sure at both of your resorts that a lot of people are experiencing sort of relaxing holiday, but at the same time, I think that was one of the things that I was thinking about in our topic in terms of sustainability and luxury, is that knowing that the business has done as much as possible in terms of sustainability and reducing the impact, maximizing positive impact on community, I think that gives sort of peace of mind that adds to the experience of relaxing and enjoying a luxurious experience of a holiday. So again, great examples that we were able to share today. And just in closing, Amy, can you tell us a bit more about what happens during the rest of the year in terms of the 10-year anniversary and the stories that you're collecting from El Nido and other winners?
Yes, so as part of the 10th birthday of our awards, of those who registered to be interested to participate, we have identified our top 10 of the past 10 years, which was difficult, but we have a really fantastic group, which is a variety of businesses of shapes and sizes, different locations, different cultures in which they exist, and different specific strengths. And the 10 businesses we're working with over the next few months, we're visiting them and collecting stories on their successes, challenges, and lessons learned. And we'll be documenting them and sharing them on our own website as well as through media partners. And we're also creating for each 10 awardee, will have their own short educational video produced. And these videos will be aimed at other tourism businesses to learn from their stories, and we'll be showing these for the first time at our annual Responsible Tourism events at ITB Asia at the end of October in Singapore. So if any of you are going to be at the event, we would love to see you at the Responsible Tourism Centre that WildAsia has been running for the past few years for ITB. And we're also delighted to be partnering with Training Aid, which is why we find ourselves here today. This is the first of our webinar series, but we have at least 2 more that will be coming up over the next few weeks. So Jaco, do you have any details on those to share?
Yeah, thanks so much for mentioning it. For those of you who are watching this or the recording, yes, we do have in July and also in August similar workshop, a webinar following this one as part of the WildAsia Responsible Tourism Leaders Series. So we hope you will follow our updates and sign up for our future sessions as well. We are also inviting some of the past winners, top 10, as Amy mentioned, of the participants of the WildAsia Award from the many years. And with topics ranging from community tourism to volunteer tourism, and many of the best practices that we've learned throughout the years from these winners. So we look forward to sharing more stories and best practices, and hope that many of you who are watching this today will be able to join us again in some of these future sessions in our series. And with that, I would like to thank you again, Amy, Mariglo, and Anfin, and sorry again, Mariglo, for the issues, but thank you anyways for being part of the session and providing a lot of knowledge and sharing your inspiring examples. Thank you everyone for joining us live, and for those of us who are here now in live session, again, we'll have the recording and the presentation slides available on Training Aid website afterwards. So please do revisit our session. And thank you again, and thank you everyone. Have a great day.